All right, I'd like to start off by passing out a real kind and warm thank you to my dear friends Charlie and Cindy for taking bubonic Bart from COVID Canyon here into their house and letting him do his seminar from here. So thank you so much for that. Thanks again to Mike and to Chase and to Joseph for helping me get this set up. It's difficult circumstances, but like we've all been doing for the last few years, we do what we can and make it work, right? So I'm going to share my screen here and get started. I wish I could be there with you guys. It's great to see the shows starting up again. Great to see people at them. You know, it's great to be running around without masks and things. I just want to get back to the old normal. I don't know about you guys, but make sure if you see somebody that works at the show, walk up to them and tell them how much you appreciate what they've done. It's not an easy task putting on one of these shows and hauling all these machines around and setting up a place for all of us to get together, all of us like-minded individuals. So make sure you thank them every time you get a chance. Let's see here. Share here. Okay. Everything looking okay? All right. So my name is Butch Peel. I work for Chicago Gaming Company now for 2 years as of June 1st, as it turns out. So my second anniversary just came and passed. So I'm going to talk to you a lot about the Cactus Canyon Remake, some of the cool things that we put into the game, additions, updates, those kinds of things. And I've got a lot to show you, so I'm just going to dive right into it. So Cactus Canyon Remake. Is it actually a remake? It's really not exactly. It's hard to remake something that never was really finished to begin with. Back in 1998, when the game came out, people knew that this was going to be the last dot matrix type traditional Williams pinball game. And even as they were starting into production, things were getting truncated, things were getting redirected, the priorities were all shifting. So a lot of issues came up that didn't allow people to finish what they were working on. It wasn't at all like a normal production run for a Williams game. So preserving assets wasn't a big deal. Everybody knew it was the end of an era. These things weren't going to be used again. This size cabinet, these types of translights, all these kind of things were all going away. So a lot of the original artwork and all wasn't really well taken care of or archived properly. Software, of course, was never finished. That's a big deal for us because you don't want to remake the game that came out with the unfinished software. We wanted a complete game, and so kind of left us in a bad situation. I mean, who do you go get to finish the software for a game like Cactus Canyon? Well, we went out and got the best of all time. That would be the late great Lyman Sheets. I could go into all the games that Lyman worked on over his career, but I've only got an hour here. Needless to say, he had a huge mark in pinball. He was not only a great designer, a great software designer, coder, player of the game. He was a great human being, and we're going to all miss him quite a bit. And we at Chicago Gaming are really proud to be able to produce Lyman's last game in Cactus Canyon. So extended code status. I want to talk a little bit about extended code. And before I even get into extended code, I want to talk a little bit about the code in general, because I get a lot of questions about this. There's a lot of concern and a lot of confusion, evidently. The game as original was not finished. It was an incomplete in terms of the rules and everything being put into the game. All the dot matrix displays, sound effects, those sorts of things weren't all in there. Of course, the guys that designed the game were planning to come back to that at a later time, but they were unable to get back to it and never got that opportunity to loop back. So when we brought Lyman in, Lyman took what was originally there and finished that game. He completed the code. It is a complete game as it's being shipped now. The software in it is complete. It's not the same as some others that have been out there before. It's done by Lyman Sheets, and it is complete. The game is complete. Also, there is the version of the software that was in the original game is also in the game. If you'd like to play it as it was produced, as it was shipped from Williams back in 1998, you can just go into the settings and change the code settings, and you can play the original game with its original rule set. as limited as it was. Now, in addition to having Lyman do this finishing of the code, from the very beginning, there was this plan to make an extended code available for the game. Once it was shipped, once it got out, and a lot of people had a game in their house, we could offer for sale offline an extended code version that would add features to the game and make it even a better game yet. So that was always intended from the very beginning. And as such, it was intended as being an upgrade kit, which means there'd be a hardware component to it, which means there's going to be a mechanism that goes out with it. So the software rules would be all wrapped around this mechanism that we're going to put into the game. And it would be something that would be easily added on or taken off if you wanted to off of your game. And it was always planned that way, to be software and hardware both. We've had Josh Sharp and Sam Zare, two of our rules and software guides, that have been working really closely with Lyman all the time during the completing of the Cactus Canyon code and working on this extended code and the rules and things in conjunction with him. Josh Sharp is a pinball historian as well as a great ranked player and all that. He's a very passionate pinball player, great guy. He is a pinball historian also. When he got started in this project, he got together with the original team that worked on Cactus Canyon for Williams back in the day and kind of just tossed some things around and discussed with them, make sure that what we were planning to do in completing the code with Lyman would be consistent with their vision for the game as it progressed. Sam Zare is an amazing resource for us at Chicago Gaming Company. He's been involved fully in every single game. There would be no Chicago Gaming Company remake games at all without Sam Zare's efforts. He's just irreplaceable. He's worked on everything, had a hand in everything that you've seen or heard or scored if you've played any of our games, from the shooter lane all the way to the ball drain. I mean, he's done it all. So you just really can't overstate how valuable of an asset he is. And being involved with this project will also help him help us finish what Lyman started. So Josh and Lyman would talk basically daily on the extended code, the completing of the code, and they would go over some ideas. And this is an original page out of Lyman Sheet's notebook in his own hand. And they would toss, ideas around, and he'd write things down, and they'd decide whether or not to try and put them in the game. And this marksman shot, actually, this marksman mode was put into the game. It was Josh's idea. And as he put it, it's one of the few things that he came up with that Lyman didn't think sucked too bad. So it actually kind of made it in. So you can see early on what they were talking about, bright shots and dim shots and, groups of shots and things like that. It kind of morphed over the time frame. This was early, in December of 2020. By the time we get into some more of Lyman's notebook notes, they were really kind of fleshing this out a lot better, trying to decide what they were going to be shooting at in a marksman mode, maybe a hangman's rope or, coffee pot, rattlesnakes. They wanted to use a rifle, big and powerful sound. That's something that was important. The X's here are like, not really, not so much. The watermelon hanging from a rope. Yeah, I can see that one got in the next. But he came up with this Silverado movie scene where these sharpshooter guys were kind of like having a competition, and they were shooting the needles off of a cactus at a great distance away. So he wanted to set up the background and all this for the dot matrix display here. And had really, Lyman is just, his details have details have details. He's just such a detail-oriented guy that when he put something like this out there, he had to spell everything out and leave nothing to chance, nothing to interpretation. So, that's kind of a near and dear to my heart because I'm kind of that way myself. I like to get into the detail. So he wanted to set this up with all of the different, the scores and the instructions and how much time you had on a timer and all this. But he wanted to have a main cactus here in the middle, and he wanted to have cactus on either side of this, that when the wind was blowing, you had a moving shot on the playfield that went from left to right and then came back from right to left and then left to right again, just kind of traveling back and forth. The one that was moving left to right, he wanted the cactus on in the display to be leaning in that direction as if the wind were blowing them. And he's showing here that the dust and wind have to be blowing in this direction. And he draws every one of them leaning in that direction. Then he wanted to, when it got to the far end and it started to make its way back again, he wanted everything to stop, stand up straight again, and then start leaning in the opposite direction. So he's spelling all of that out here in great detail. I just love it. And then, of course, when you get to going right to left, you've got the dust and wind showing and everything leaning that way. So it's just a ton of detail from Lyman. And he really pictures this from early on, how it's going to look on the dot matrix display. There's your main cactus again here in the center. So it gets to this scene from the movie, and he even writes in a little note here that this is a scene from a movie. So, in case these are copyrighted cactus here, we might want to make this look a little different so it's not exactly the same. Those are the kind of things that go through his mind. But he's trying to tell you here there's going to be 3 shots now. So there's the left and a right shot, and then there's going to be a center shot. And this is where he wants them to hit on this main cactus that he's drawing. So he wants to show it in a close-up. He says this main cactus, he wants to look like this. But the other ones can be kind of like this one down here, which is, drawn other type. He calls it. I think it's a saguaro cactus, actually. But he has everything all spelled out, where he wants to hit on the cactus, what it's going to look like, worrying about copywriting, all the details. Then he shows 3 scenes from the little frames from the movie where one of the cactus needles here is getting shot off, and he circles it. He wants this bullet to come through here and knock one of these, explode it, and send the needle away. And then he wants to put up some animation over the top of it. Then on a right shot, he wants to take on the right side of the cactus. And you might want to, make this change the angle because we can't have the cactus leaning a little bit. It needs to be straight on. All those kind of details he's got spelled out here. And this one, he did a better 3 frames because you can actually see the chunk being shot out. I guess when they put that in the dot matrix display and even with the high resolution, it was hard to come up with something that looked really cool like this. So it changed a little as it got to the main to into the game. But here in the last shot, when you shoot up the center, he wanted it to destroy the cactus completely and send chunks flying out everywhere. So he wants it to hit right there. That's the spot. That's the sweet spot of the cactus. And this is kind of what it ended up looking like. So you can kind of feel the wind blowing this way. And then when you move in for a shot, there's the chunks of cactus. And it turned out pretty cool. So the rules and development and implementation so far on this have come along pretty well because as Josh says, they start from the start button and go forward. So it's really easy when you're doing something cool like developing rules to just jump right into the meat of the rules. And I'll worry about how you get there and what shot brings it up and all that later. These guys start from the very beginning, work their way methodically through it, and get to the meat when the meat is ready. When you've got to the point where the shot is actually being made and everything's all set up. So you can see how things could be pretty mature if they've been working on it for quite a while because of that methodology. We just wanted to bring this up. I'm not prepared to talk about what the mechanism is going to be right now. Just want to make sure that you all understand that this company is committed to getting this project over the finish line. It is really important to us. So back to the standard remake concerns. We're going to start with what we did in a remake here. First thing you want to do is address any known Cactus Canyon mechanics, electronics, and play issues. One of the main things we knew from the original game was that the drop targets themselves are a little bit of a problem. They have some issues. I'll talk more about that later. And of course, the software not being completed, that was a big issue too. There were some other, nagging things about the artwork. Looked like there could have been some more artwork in there. So we found places to add our touch to it. So that's where you can come up with some cool new features to add to the game. And it's all in the details. And again, I love details. This is fun for me being involved with projects like this, just because I'm so deep into the details myself. Because after all, the differences between a good game and a great game and a great game and a holy cow game, it's all in the details. And so it's really fun to try and come up with those. We're on a quality ramp at CGC. We started in 15 with Medieval Madness, the 17 Back from Mars remake, Monster Bash remake, and Medieval Madness Royal Edition. I mean, everyone just, raising the bar again. And we felt some tremendous pressure here to make Cactus Canyon remake even better than all the games before. And it's tough to keep raising that bar, but we're committed to doing that. So what are you going to address on Cactus Canyon? Well, we have the first commandment that we apply to everything. Never going to change the playfield artwork or the layout. So none of that's going to change. The inserts, the artwork, everything. You lay the original playfield over our playfield, they match up exactly. That's what a remake is. You don't change things as fundamental to the game as the playfield is. But one place you can get some real bang pretty quick is the cabinet artwork. Originally, these were made for the decals of the time. It's hard for us now to find the high fidelity originals or higher fidelity for what we're able to achieve these days with decal. So we're ending up taking the lower resolution graphics that we have, sharpening them up, redrawing some things, adding a little more detail here and there, adjusting and correcting colors, those sorts of things. And of course, we're going to use new and durable materials. So the Cactus Canyon cabinet decals today and the way they're attached to the cabinet are going to be, much higher quality and much more durable and reliable over the long term than, of course, what they had in 1998. So another place to add some pizzazz really quick is to put the cabinet inner art blades. So these are on the LE game. I'm going to take you around the inside of the cabinet, starting with the left flipper over here and working our way up the left side, up into the left corner there. We'll work across the back panel, come back down, starting down the right side, and all the way back down to the right flipper. And you can tell, that the goal here is to try and make something that looks like it could have been on the game to begin with. So the back panel was already there. We made something that extended the back panel and matched it really well and looks like it belongs there from the get-go. And that's really, it can be a challenge, but it's fun to do. What else are we going to address? Well, we're going to, of course, not going to use incandescent game lighting anymore. The day of the bulb is fast going away. We're using LEDs now. With LEDs, with great power comes great responsibility. And of course, you got some amazing LEDs these days that will just, light up clear across the street if you're not careful. So you got to adjust the intensity. You've got to keep all this stuff in mind, the color temperatures, the warm versus cool, wavelengths and things like that. So where you get greens, different colors of greens, different colors of blues, things like that. One thing that we want to make sure we do is we complement and not overpower the artwork that's already in the game. Translights and playfield plastics and playfield inserts have their own colors for a reason. You don't need to put a blue bulb under a blue insert. You don't have to put a green bulb under a green insert. If you'd like those with the right color of white, the right intensity and the right temperature of white, cool or warm, you can bring out the original beauty that's already there. And you're not going to wash something out. You're not going to overpower it. Translights, if you backlight translights with colored LEDs, you're just going to wash out all the detail and all the color contrast in the really small areas that somebody put a lot of time and effort into putting there and that look really nice. So we will use our RGB LEDs under the playfield plastics to change the mood on the playfield and make dramatic effects. But when you go back to playing regular, the lights go back to white and you can see the original colors and all of the plastics and everything that are already there. And we're not going to do something that just washes something out. You got to control that intensity as well, because we've got some really powerful LEDs at our command now. So here's the back glass for the original Cactus Canyon game. And these two were taken at the factory. My two pictures here of the remake right next to it, same lighting conditions, but there's no backlighting. So the lights are all off. This is just to show what you can do differently in the colors. So you notice the original artwork here that it looks kind of washed out. It has a little white look to it, but that's because they're backlighting with incandescent bulbs, and you can't make this stuff too dark, otherwise it looks like your back box isn't even lit up. But now when we put LEDs in there, we can really enrich and deepen and saturate the colors that much more. They're back to the original again. especially in the areas, where it's black or where you've got really bright colors. You're not afraid to make those deep and thick anymore, because now when you backlight them with LEDs, you can produce enough light to make them really stand out and be really bright. Same thing can be said for the ramps. So this is the left ramp on the game. And if you look at the decal on it, it's backlit with lighting underneath. So we can make that a lot deeper too, make it much more bright and colorful when it's not even lit up. So it makes a big difference when you start, sharpening up those colors and making things a lot prettier. So RGB LED general illumination that we use, it's modular, it has connectors, so it's easy to replace things. What we're trying to do under the playfield is get rid of some of this, spaghetti wiring under here that's really hard to follow and all. This is a lot of general illumination here. These yellow wires are going off into other general illumination. The yellow that's come down here, general illumination. Any one of these breaks loose, part of your string goes out in an original game. If these metal pieces short up against something else metal, they can blow fuses. It can be really problematic. And you catch these wires, a lot of the GIs right up next to the edge of the playfield, and some of these wires can find their way over and get clipped and things like that. So it's really important to when in our games make something that's more easy to follow, that's modular and easy to replace when something goes out, and the wires are kept well out of harm's way, basically in safe places. What you get is a lot cleaner wiring for the general illumination. The other place that we were able to make a big change is with the back panel RGB LED strip. So we can light up the top end of the playfield like it was never lit up with the incandescent bulbs to begin with. And we can kind of cheat a little bit. It kind of takes some of the color out of the game when the game's not on, but put clear jet bumper caps on. And that way we can put RGB LEDs under the inside the jet bumper bodies, and we can change those and wash them in the same color as the playfield and do some neat effects with them as well. More to address. Of course, we're going to have to modernize game electronics. That kind of goes without saying. We're not going to use those through-hole boards that they used back in the day. Everything's, gone to smaller, our CPU controller driver boards that we use in other games, tried and true designs and good controllers. We're going to put those in. We're going to put in our multi-purpose main printed circuit boards under the playfield here. So we're able to, reduce a lot of the clutter and a lot of the wiring. It looks like there's a lot of wiring here, but it's nothing compared to the real game. These trunks of, 2 inches big around with wires that go out everywhere. And then you get all of this, rat's nest of single strands that are out there waiting to get cut off or snipped or tangled around something and get too close to moving pieces. So, it's underneath the playfield too. We have here the opto driver boards, the motor controller boards and things like that from the original game that we can then incorporate that circuitry within our main boards and then just run off little connectors off to the side there. We can do that with switches and wires too, so that we don't have a matrix switch matrix or lamp matrix anymore. So there's no more of these diodes that are difficult to figure out the wiring for and the problems that they bring into the game also. And just reducing a lot of this, make a much cleaner wiring look under the playfield, much easier to follow where something comes from, where it goes to. Speaker upgrades, you don't have to try really hard to upgrade the speakers that were in the original Williams games. These were commercial devices. They weren't trying to, make them for audio files. They were made for being put on location. So they did the job. They put out the noise, and people had some fun playing them. Now, when we're going to put them in our home, we might want these to sound a little better. So that's what we were aiming for. Color HD XL display for Cactus Canyon. The XL display, the biggest one, is available. It's in all of the games. It's what ships in all of the games. And so we have to come up with a bunch of new high resolution dot matrix display and animations. some of the things that we came up with were, some new champions. So you don't just have your grand champion and champion 1, 2, 3, and 4 that come up at the end of the game. If you're the one that shot the most beer mugs in the game, now you've got the beer mug champion. You got the bionic bar champion. It's very impressive. This man can shoot the bionic bar. This is great stuff. These guys, I saw a 2006 Expo interview with the original game designers, and they were so bummed, to a man, that they weren't able to get Bionic Bart into their game. They had made dot matrix representations of him. They had some sounds that they wanted him to make and all this, but it was one of those things again that we're going to loop back and get to later, and they never were able to get there. So we're real glad that we were able to get Bionic Bart in there. Now you had the mug shooting. When you hit that mug and it popped up in the air, it would make a ricochet sound in the old game. That's all it did. You'd get a display showing you how many more you had to hit to get an extra ball, but that was about it. Now we've added Dooley, the town drunk's getting his drink. Hey, quit shooting my drink. This guy's there to show you what happens when you hit the mug, and it keeps the count of those. And so this is exactly how you get, this is shown off of an SE Plus screen, but you shoot 10 times, you hit the beer mug 10 times. That's how you get to the topper mode. So when you go play the game out there, hit that beer mug 10 times, shoot it up under Bart's chin, and you'll get up to play the topper. And that's really fun on the LE game in there, the SE Pluses. So the original Polly Peril, when that started and she was on the train tracks, that wasn't very interesting. All you got was an update of how many shots you needed to make to get your extra ball lit. And this is what you got every time you made a shot. Not very satisfying. So we added some dot matrix display animations for that. So a left ramp shot, and our hero unties her hands from the tracks. A right ramp shot, and our hero unties her feet. And then a shot up the center to finish it actually frees her from the track. And kind of a little known thing, if you save Polly at least once, and she's always in peril, that one, so you get lots of opportunities. If you save her just once during the game, you get to see our hero carry her off into the sunset on your game over screen, which is très romantique. And my favorite dot that we added to it, and this was kind of a later on, the code champion for Lyman sheets. That's for Lyman, and that's for all time. No one ever is going to beat that score. More to address, the drop target. This is a huge problem with the game. It's a huge concern when you're remaking the game, because the drop targets are so important in this game. They make the game, or they can break it. So the drop targets in the original Cactus Canyon game would not go up and all the way, or they would fall down by themselves without hitting them. And so in this game, if the drop target comes up, it needs to come up, stay up until hit. When hit, it needs to go down. Also when hit, it should give the ball some kind of a control and back to the player, and not go flying off to the back corner of the cabinet up there because it went airborne and you lose control. When you make a good shot, you ought to be rewarded in pinball with control of the ball again. And that's difficult with a drop target, but we took it on. We thought we could make it happen. So the original, if you go back to the original drop targets this is like the Star Trek Next Generation era, Indiana Jones, Williams era. This is what the drop target originally looked like. And it was not too bad of a mechanism. It did have its issues. The main ones being that this little finger here could break off, that drops the target down, that resets it. This one had to be an adjustment just properly. If it was open too wide, this guy couldn't pull it in. Whoops. Back up a little bit. Sorry, hit my button there. This wouldn't pull in right and knock the drop target down. This guy would break off sometimes, and the whole thing would not work. That just disables parts of your game. And the biggest problem, of course, was the micro switch back here. It had this big old long finger on the end of it that the drop target had to hit when it came down. If this is out of adjustment down here, it can cause the switch to get broken by the drop target just falling and registering. And then a lot of times these little 256 screws would pop out, and the thing would get loose, and it wouldn't even register when it dropped at all. And that's a big problem in the game, because you don't want to get shot and not get scored for it. So these guys, I give them credit. They saw that was a problem with the originals, and so they tried to make a new one. So they came up with this carriage design that this entire carriage would be pulled up by this coil, and it would bring this drop target and everything with it. So all around that carriage would just pop up, and the drop target would be above the play field. Then when it was knocked down, it would slide down alongside here, and it would knock this little fin down here would trip the switch, and you could tell that the drop target had been hit and had knocked down. The problem with that was there was no lock mechanism to hold it up. It was actually using the coil and pulsing that coil over and over again, like kind of like a flipper hold, and it would have to hold it into place. And what happened over time, those would get warm because they're getting used a lot, and the things would shatter when they went up. They couldn't hold it, or they would get to where they were so warm that they couldn't kick up all the way, and partially the target would start to peek through the play field and then fall back down. Very frustrating when you're trying to shoot those drop targets and want to hit the bad guy. So what we didn't think there was really all that much wrong with the original. We liked it better than their remake. So we went back to the original design. And the main thing that we wanted to do was make it more modular and make it more reliable. So we replaced this coil that dropped it down, and that problematic finger that could break off and all that with a tube solenoid that is attached, and run through this little circuit board that attaches to the back. And so that retract solenoid all it does just a little pop right in the center there, basically punches the target in the stomach, and it falls down whenever you want to reset it. The opto switch that we added takes the place of micro switches in the other two versions. And this is just a U-shaped opto now that has that fin goes between there, and you can tell when the target's up and down. And when we were able to backlight it. So we put an array of LEDs back behind here that light this clear polycarbonate material and makes the target glow. We also changed the shape. We completely retooled this, and we added a tilt to the front of the target so that when the ball hits it, it doesn't want to hit it like a ramp and go flying off. It hits and comes back to the player, and it actually knocks the target down when you hit it. It also, we added a wedge top to the top of it. The original, they had a very thin, like a tombstone version of this, and it didn't fill the hole very well around the drop target. So the ball is going to have a rougher time bouncing over that, and it's not going to roll true when it bounces over that. So when the ball rolls over ours, it's much smoother. We did have to change the spotting a little bit to make ours, line up with the hole. And in addition to that, we want to protect the playfield by putting a piece of Mylar all the way around this. So there's a clear Mylar around the hole also to help protect the playfield surface. And in that same interview that I saw and heard from Expo, the designers were just, really bummed again that they weren't able to backlight these targets. They wanted them to backlight real bad. They tried several materials. They just couldn't withstand their life cycle testing. They were cracking and breaking, and they had to go to something more, solid, just because back in that day, that's what was available. Now we're able to, at a later time, use some different materials, and we were able to make them clear, change the decals on the front to a nice translucent one that matches well. And we made them glow, and I hope we did them proud. More to address. Yes, there's more. While we're backlighting stuff, why don't we try backlighting these little targets over here? We'll make them more of a translucent white plastic like we did our drop target, and we'll put those RGB LED array back behind each one of them so that we can make it different colors. Very, very attractive, very effective. Inductive ball sensors. So we wanted to replace 4 reed switches and 4 ramp micro switches on the game. Original reed switches, they had a couple of them under the front of this is underneath the mine here. You can see the shaft coming up. That's this part here. They had 2 reed switches underneath here that were just used to recognize that the ball came close in there and they could move and open the mine shaft up a little bit. So we replaced that with a single board, and that's one of our new inductive ball sensors. We have a smaller version of it too that we used here. This is the jet bumpers here have an exit for the ball to roll out. You need to know when that happens, when it leaves the jet bumper area. You can see right here, there's like a clear insert, but their reed switch was right underneath that. And we, of course, replaced that with a single small inductive sensor. Now, this is where you get some real, clean installation. You're really going after the look, because when you're on the top of the play field, everything's in plain sight. You can hide all that other stuff under the play field. It doesn't make that much of a difference. But when you've got a big old micro switch up here, and because of the bracket you're using, you've got a ball trap there, so you put a big old rubber stopper on top of that to keep the ball from getting stuck there. When you go to a inductive sensor that's mounted underneath the edge, flat underneath the edge of that, a lot more bang for your buck. And when you're going to add a new decal to the ramp at the same time, you can get really clever. And since this is the bank robbery ramp here, we had the door blow off the safe, and then part of the artwork covers up the inductive ball sensor. So you can get really creative, and it's a lot of fun to figure things out and come up with slick ways to fix things like that. Here's another one. Change to that. And this one is on the bottom of a clear ramp, but still it's a lot less sightly than that other thing. That just looks really bad. And this is what the driver board looks like underneath the play field. Every one of the sensors plugs in a different place there. This is what they look like when they come from the factory, snap apart and hook them up. And these are digital sensors. So when you remember the sensors like they used in the early Williams days, they were analog devices. So they had a little potentiometer under them. You'd get a little screwdriver with a little red LED on there that would tell you when the thing was triggered, and you'd have to tweak it every so often. You get it tweaked just right, and you'd walk away from your game and not play it for a month. You come back, and sure enough, the switch don't register again because the light's always on. You have to go tweak it again. This is all done with digital devices that are adjustable in the game settings menu. So that's a really cool thing too. Still more to address. New direct drive motor assemblies. So the original train motion, this is that drags the train back and forth across the middle of the play field. They use these multi-gear kind of complex setups to hook to the shaft of the motor and control the speed by how many gears they put in and which ones you actually connect it to. And this, you can't blame them for doing this, because these were parts that were used in like Medieval Madness and the drawbridge to bring it up and down. They were using the Monster Bash Frankenstein table going up and down. These were the existing parts, so you can't blame them for using those. It's just that they get sluggish over time. They get gooped up with things that are supposed to be lubricating them that turn to peanut butter over the years and mess things up. And a lot of the times the sprockets themselves will break, and you end up with teeth that are missing, and then you get jerky motion and things. So we wanted to do away with all that. So we came up with a direct drive, hooking it right up to the shaft and a cam on the motor. And that's for the train. This is underneath, makes the mine move up and down. That's the assembly that does that. Again, unsightly gears, much cleaner, much more reliable, much better. Still more to address. Now we get to some really pretty stuff, some really beautiful sculpture replacements and additions that we put in the game. So you walk up to the Cactus Canyon game and you look around and you're starting to think of things that need to be replaced or updated or made to look better. This guy screams at you. He screams at you, replace me, replace me. But we thought, well, maybe we could paint him up a little bit. And we could add a little more detail, an antiquing thing, make him look more realistic. So we sent some of these out to be hand painted. And yeah, it looks better, but it really wasn't the look we were going for. So we put quite a bit more effort into it as an artist, and this is what we came up with. And I think he looks pretty awesome. He's on a brow there and all. Bad dude. The mine entrance. This one was made out of kind of a thin material that was very fragile. You get cracks and breaks where it attached. A lot of times ball impacts would crack and break it. We came up with a much thicker, more flexible type of material, kind of like a vinyl that would take the shocks and not break. And of course, added a bunch more detail to it and make it look more realistic. So that was fun. And of course, because we have RGB LEDs now, it's really cool to light the scoop from the underside of the playfield and let you know when you can shoot there and with the color of what you're shooting for, jackpots or blocks and those sorts of things. Very cool looking. The original train for the game was just a vacuum formed thing, and so we actually made a die-cast metal train to take its place. That's a big upgrade right there. And the pistols on the bottom arch, another huge upgrade. And these were just vacuum formed also, so they look three-dimensional from above, but they were just very hollow, and you can see that they get broken. The trigger guard's broken on this guy. We came up with three-dimensional, complete, solid models for those. So very, very cool sculptures. And we put, some cactuses or cacti, or, I come from the desert Southwest and I don't even understand that subtlety, but let's just say there are multiple cactus sculptures that we added. How's that? That'll work. We have a mine cart and an track coming off the back of here. This is where the ball kind of comes out from underneath here. It kicks out into the scoop. So we're kind of hiding the scoop a little bit. That's an LE only feature. So the mine cart and this attached to the existing special edition cave mine opening. So, and then we added some track timbers that go underneath the tracks that go across the screen here. Again, an LE only, but adds a lot to the train tracks there. Excuse me, my voice. I will say that my cough is my most persistent COVID thing, so the voice gets to me every so often. I'm going to work through this, though. So, new artwork added, more things to address. In the original game, right behind the shooter bowl that the ball goes into every time you launch the ball. There was a couple of plastics that were sandwiched one on top of the other, and they really looked like an afterthought. I know they were put there to keep the ball from getting trapped in this area, because that kind of comes to light late in the development cycle a lot of times. But we thought that needed some artwork. So what we did was add a little guy taking a bath there on top of the upper plastic. So big difference, makes it look a lot more finished, a lot more polished. Right ramp decal. So you see the main ramp coming over the top, but underneath here is a right ramp that comes up this side, almost like an orbit shot. The thing comes around, feeds this wire ramp that comes back down. This had no decal on it at all. So you can see straight through to the back of the play field and no artwork under there. Obviously something they wanted to get back to and never made it to. So we did. This is where we did the bank robbery, one I showed you a part of earlier. And I think it came out really well. And it looks like it belongs there. Stunning bottom arches. So this is really cool. The original game looks like this below. These are vacuum formed things that are just kind of attached onto here with a single screw that were easy to break and all. This is our all metal powder coated special edition plus arch. And you can see it just looks, they just look amazing. So proud of the way these came out. And then, of course, our laser etched stained wood top LE arch. These are even better. I mean, just amazing. That's a metal numbered limited edition plaque that they go on. This is the LE only again. And yeah, laser etched wood, stained, beautiful, beautiful. And then some of those details I was talking about earlier. This is one of them. This bottom arch cover. This is just a piece of wood that goes on top of the LE bottom arch. This has to be cut out, cut to shape, and then you have to put it in and route it out. CNC route all these things. You have to drill the holes in it, all the different size holes. This is a lot of passes on this one piece. Then it goes to the laser, it gets laser etched. When it does that, it kind of singes the whole top here. So you got to sand that all down. When you sand it down, you get something that looks much nicer. And then, of course, you got to stain it, you got to seal it, you got to, assemble it, all these things. But here's one of these cool features, they're just a little detail. So these bullets that sit on the bottom arch here, some of them are upright, some of them are laying on their side. And they're both put in with screws that just come in from underneath like so. Well, when you do that, you've got these really pretty, powder coated and nice, beautiful wooden finished arches. The first thing happens when you start putting a screw in from underneath into that sideways bullet. When it gets tight, it wants to twist, and when it twists, it'll make a nice semicircular arc and mess up your powder coat or mess up your wooden arch here. So seeing that as a problem and taking extra steps, the details, it's all in the details to make sure that doesn't happen. Cut a little bit of a routed out oval shape here. Cut a slot in this. Now, when you pull that down with the screw and hold it into place, it can't spin anymore. The slot and the notch lock it into place. There's little details like that I see throughout, building and design in this company that make me so proud to be part of it. Here's the side of the old bottom arch. And you see from this how much we dropped the profile there of the arch, how much lower the new arch is than the old one was. And that makes it easier for the little short guys among us to be able to see over the top and play and actually see the pinball and follow it for some of our shorter pinball players. Children, let's just say children. Also, you can see that they've changed the wooden rail down here and just extended it a little bit rather than have this extra metal part with the extra things and screw in and all that. All we have to do is just extend that wooden rail. You can also see the superior quality of our plywood in these pictures as compared to the old days. And it's something, again, that we make cabinets. We've been making play fields forever, and something we're really proud of is nobody makes them like we do. Yep, and there's still even more to address. Sound and music work. We had to clean up a lot of the original sounds and music. We even were able to unlock some never used hidden treasure original callouts, because when the game is being developed, somebody is recording sound, somebody's making dot matrix display animations and things like that. And all this information is stored in read-only memory ROMs inside the game's CPU board. They snap into one of those IC sockets. Well, they load that up a long time before they're actually called in. So as the programmers go through and they're able to add features, they can quickly just call that memory location and get these sounds, and call that memory location and get these dot matrix display animation. And so those are in there waiting for the programmer to call on them long before they're ever actually put into the software. Well, when you never finish the software, then they just kind of got lost. They just sit there and you don't even know they're there anymore. So we were able to find, when we start digging into this, a lot of original call outs. So we were able to put those in the remake game, which makes it all that much more rich for us. And of course, you have to have some new music and call outs and sound effects, because a lot of them just weren't ever gotten to in this game. It was such a short production run that, they did what they could. And last but not least, you've got a nice new shooter rod here. That's, in the old days, they had a plastic one here that they used in like the Circus Voltaires and the Theater of Magic and all that. It was in Cactus Canyon also. Well, why use a plastic one when you can put a real pinball on there and thread it on there? It's really cool, very effective, and very, very neat looking. Did I say least? I didn't mean least or last, because that certainly would happen to be our topper. We made an integrated, interactive Cactus Canyon topper for this game. That's where we really were able to step out and show what we can do and how we can complement the game. This thing is an amazing work of art. It's an amazing work of technology. It's got a 48 LED strip behind these stars here, which move back and forth and let you aim with your flipper buttons, which windows you want to shoot under and try and take out the bad guy. Excuse me. And so you got backlit windows here, and all of these different windows, and some of them have good guys behind them, some of them have bad guys. When they light up, you got to move the stars over to which one you want to shoot. Don't shoot the good guys, only shoot the bad guys. And then on top of that, there's a piece of acrylic in front of these that's edge lit, and you can kind of see there's some etching on the front of these. So they're like a skull and crossbones there. So when you hit the right guy, you get a green skull and crossbones. If you hit somebody you weren't supposed to, it's a red skull and crossbones, and it's game over. And so The topper really is a game within a game. It's like a game all in itself. We have an animated Bart figure here that can move his arms up and down. He can draw with either left or right guns. There are motors that control each arm independently, and he has a knockback feature. So there's a coil that pulls him back when he's hit. So he can, got me, partner, kind of thing. Lots of RGB LED lighting and all these kind of things. This is an assembly aid that I put together to kind of show how this stuff is wired and everything. You can see the motors behind Bart and the little Hall effect boards for his guns, and so you know where his gun is, what position his gun is. All the light boards that go all the way around this thing, all the routing and everything that was done for all of the cabling and everything, and how it all connects. This is a back view with the Topper 3 board that was designed specifically for this topper. And we thought we were designing in some headroom, but by the time we were finished, all the control lines were magically all used up. And you can see how, because there's just a lot of things going on here, a lot of things to control. And it's just a complex beast. And so here's a wiring diagram that I put together for it, just to show that this got more electrical connections than some of the old solid state games, entire games do. It's just amazing. And when you go to assemble one, I've done a lot of assembly drawings in my time, and I couldn't come up with a way to do it in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I had to do 8 separate assembly drawings to show how to put this thing together and all the parts that were involved in doing it. 8 different assembly drawings. Complex piece. A lot of fun to play. So I'm going to switch gears now and show you a little bit. That's kind of the end of the Cactus Canyon Remake, what we did to the game. I want to show a little bit of what's going on at the factory right now. So I was there a couple of weeks ago, and I went around taking pictures after everybody went home one night so that we could I could show you some of the ways that we put these games together. So these are back panels for Cactus Canyon, assembling them. That's how they store them after they put them together. And this is all done on assembly benches, and all the big pieces are put together, and they're all stored, and then they're taken to the line at different points, and they're added to the game as needed. This is just an empty one of these, just to kind of show the kind of forethought and planning that goes into. We're going to have all these tubs, these plastic tubs that have the translights on them, and you got glass and you got plastic things that could get easily scratched and marred and all that kind of stuff. So you put nylon gliders in here, top and bottom, and you don't just want to stack these on top of one another, laying somewhere and scratch them and all that sort of thing. So you have this entire cabinets that are just made to hold a bunch of translights. And that's really cool. Here's more of them cactus sculptures. Yeah, there are a lot of those. They're all attached to little clear plastic circles. So this is kind of an assembly already. And then some of those assemblies go over and then get attached to a playfield plastic. So this is the upper left corner plastic. There's like 2 cactus sculptures at the top of the playfield, one on either side of the lanes up there. This is a box full of the ones to the left side. Drop targets, and more drop targets. 4 per game. They're going to add up pretty quick. And you notice too that CGC is part of Churchill Cabinets, and we make cabinets for a lot of the games here. You're welcome for the free advertising, Play Mechanics and Raw Thrills. But man, when you got decals that weren't good enough to put on a cabinet, they really make a good shelf covering. So, nothing goes to waste. Here's some electronic flashers and micro switch assemblies. So these are 2 separate, basically, assemblies that are soldered then together and hooked with one. This is one cable that wires into both parts. And those are made up by the hundreds so that you can then add them quickly to this ramp here. You see, again, some more free Raw Thrills advertisement there. Product placement, I guess you'd call it. So yeah, we've got fixtures here that are made to clamp down and hold a ramp in place, and so it doesn't end up getting set on a rough surface and get scratched and messed up while they're screwing in all these little things and riveting things to it and adding decals. So little fixtures like that are very, very handy on the benches. All the parts and everything that go into making this ramp are right here together. Someone sits right there and just builds these all day long and makes a big pile of them. Very cool. Then when the bench is covered, you got to move into a box, and there's like several different layers of the paper in between here. Find a way to stack them where it doesn't damage them. Lots of ramps and ramps and ramps. Here we got train tracks and train stations all aboard. Plenty of them coming there. Oh boy, and we got some BARTs here going now. Look at all the BARTs. And then we got BART overload and BART overflow. So yeah, here we go. Lots of BARTs. Very cool. Wire gates for the main ramp up the center. Those can be quickly added to this guy along with a bunch of those inductive sensors, because there's one of those on the ramp too, and then you stack them up. And every game, every different assembly has to have a different way to stack it and hold it and keep it and set up all these benches. It's really a fascinating process. Now I'm going to skip on to playfield to show you a little bit about the playfields here. So we got the playfields get some posts and sleeve posts and things like that, and key nuts and these wire ball guides added to them first and foremost. Then they turn it over and they use this fixture to insert all the wood rails that go into the game. You lay the playfield on there, it centers up perfectly, keeps everything perfectly straight, and you just go down the line, putting those in. You put in the brackets that hold the playfield underneath while it's in the cabinet, some ball guides, key nuts, all those kinds of things for the opposite side. Then it gets added to a playfield rotisserie, and it gets put on the line. So the first place in the line there, they're adding jet bumpers and gates, wire gates. You keep the ball basically attached. The wiring, satellite ones have all been put on. And you add the items to the top of the playfield, make sure everything's all plugged in, and then you're able to take it over to the test fixture. So this is like the initial power up, hold your breath, smoke test kind of thing on a playfield. Make sure that everything, by hand, you can actuate all the switches and the lights and seem to be working, and you can check it out with the sounds. It's got like a speaker, like a cabinet has. It has the back box driver stuff that just plugs into the playfield there, and you've got a screen there for the dot matrix display, so you can pretty much get a good feeling that the playfield's put together right and it's going to function. Then you take it over. You got to get some cabinets going to put these playfields in. So first step here, after you've decaled and put it all together, of course, is ground braids. You add some ground braid to the inside of the cabinet. Everything metal that goes through the cabinet's got to be grounded for safety purposes. And so you end up using 12, 15, 20 feet of ground braid inside a cabinet every time you build one. You move it on down, that's ground braid, and you're coming on down this way. You got parts on either side here of things that are going to go inside the cabinet. This is a kind of a three-headed beast here. It's got the power switches for underneath where you turn on your game. It's got the outlet at the back of the game that you plug your cable into, and it's got the power supply, the main power supply for the game that mounts in the bottom of the cabinet. So these are kind of all tethered together with wiring, and they're all mounted at the same station at the same time in a cabinet. And then you get to bring that playfield that you're pretty sure works all right, and you put it in with this cabinet that you're hoping works all right, and you start hooking everything together and send it over to final assembly and test. When you get over there, you're going to put the whole thing, the completed sort of game, on a wooden cart. Notice all the wooden carts here. Doug loves his wood. I mean, we're like the Native Americans with the buffalo. When a buffalo died, there's no waste. The same thing with us. When a tree dies, there's no waste. We use every bit of wood you can possibly imagine. There's always a use for it. If there were a way to possibly build a wooden toilet, Doug would do it. I'm certain of it. In fact, this is what the wheels look like on his car. You think I'm kidding, don't you? But it's true. So lots of games here that are getting ready to get all plugged in with all the cabling and everything, get ready to power them up, bring them over to the area where they become a full game now that's playable. The cart has the proper pitch to it, so you can sit here and play them on these wooden carts, adjust all the switches, make sure everything's fully functional as a complete game. Back box, lighting, sound, dot matrix display, coin door, everything's in here now. And you can tell that the game's good to go. You put your stamp on it, good to go. Get a piece of playfield glass. There's a couple of pieces over here in the corner. Okay, quite a few pieces. Yeah, that's a lot of glass right over there. that, imagine how heavy that pallet is. That's a lot of glass. And now we get to the end where we've added all the packing material, put the glass in, you've got things taped to it, instructions, it's got its serial number and everything, where it's going, who it's for, and it gets ready to go into a box. And you slide it down the rollers here and into this cradle. The cradle then tips up and tips it where it'll slide easily into a box. That's how we get a pinball machine into a box. It's pretty cool when you have the right tools, as usual. And then we slide it over here and we add some banding to it, and we band it to an oversized pallet. That's one of the keys for our games that keeps it from getting damaged in transit. When you can keep stuff from getting right up against it and rubbing and poking holes in this, you can assure, a lot easier that its game will get where it's going and not be damaged. So oversized pallet is what we use for that. So what takes CGC so long? Well, the game was played at Cactus Canyon was played at Expo in basically Halloween. We noted some nagging issues. People didn't notice that there was anything wrong with the game, but we noticed things. The drop targets still weren't doing what we wanted them to do. There was playfield wear around the mine hole here. We were starting to see damage around Bart's head. We did not want that to happen. So, we made protectors for that. And we took time to stop and make some final changes to the drop targets and all. So contrary to popular belief, this was not one of the problems that we found at Expo. We had a couple of games that we wanted to put toppers on. We only had one. We were prototyping metal parts that held his arms on. And we only had one set of those. So we hooked it up to one of the games. It worked great. We didn't have time to get another one in before the show. So we thought, maybe we can do a 3D printed version of it. And we could get through the weekend at Expo. No, didn't work. Both arms fell off in short order. Somebody posted this online and said, you're lucky. It's good that my arms fell off after Kaneda left. So I got a kind of a chuckle out of that. But, there's an old adage about using 3D printed parts in production pinball. Don't. It's not good. So inductor sensor inconsistencies. We had to fine tune some of the circuitry there because we were getting places where you get multiple scores for the same shot or not enough score for you don't want to make a ramp shot and not get credit for it. That's really terrible. So I think that's the worst of the two things. You'll take the 12 extra ones that you got for making that ramp once, but you don't like it when you make it and you don't get scored. So got all that fixed up, and now we started shipping games, and they're going out in pretty good quantities, and they're actually getting quite a bit out into the public. And basically, when it's our company philosophy. I mean, there are three things you have to weigh when you go to get something. How much it's going to cost you, the price, how good it's going to be, its quality, and how long it's going to take to get it, and the time to delivery. We're basically chasing perfection and exercising high standards at every step of the way when we build your game. We don't like compromising. And if we do have to compromise, the time to delivery is what we're going to compromise on. Because, as our boss always says, our customers will forgive late. They will not forgive wrong. So, we're building high quality games at a really good price. Sometimes it just takes a little longer to get them out to you. And with that, I'll take some questions if anybody has anything.
Well, I have a couple of questions from the chat.
Okay.
The first one is, when do you think the LE run will actually start?
Oh, they love that. Let's see a lot of what you saw on those benches there. That doesn't have to be special edition parts. So, the start of LE is when you actually get them, shipping them out the door. But you can have a lot of the parts already made. You can switch over if you're waiting like we are right now. It happens to be on some of the topper parts are still kind of holdouts for us. So until you have every single part, you can't make the game complete, but you can start, building up a lot of the games and then turn them into LEs in the final, how you make the cabinet, how you add the toys to the play field, those sorts of things, and putting the topper on it. So it's a really tough question to answer these days, especially with the way parts and and things. We ran out of boxes a while back, and same guy that's been making boxes for Chicago Gaming Company for 30 years wouldn't even return a phone call or an email because he just couldn't get the materials. And so you don't see stuff like that coming, and little things that you're getting from here or from overseas, you just really, it's a guess. And I don't like making guesses, but very soon.
And then the second question in the chat was, when will some upgraded code be released?
That's the extended code that I was talking about. That's the upgrade. I mean, there are some little bug fixes, things that will be available to owners soon. I know we found an issue with the ball search in the game, that it had a little code bug in it where it was taking way too long to search for the ball. So when the ball kind of sometimes gets hung up there right next to Bart's ear, or it sticks somewhere else on the play field, it seems to take forever to go through a ball search. So little things like that we've got fixes, those will be available pretty soon on the website, like our other software updates. But this extended code thing, they're working through getting that ready to go. They're looking through the design document and what's in the code already and going line by line through that. Josh is playing a big part in that, and Sam's there. We'll be helping finish that up. But there's some work to be done on the mech yet. We make sure that it's really reliable and does what we want it to do. So if you're asking about the extended code, that's going to be a little further down the road, because we obviously need to get our games out first. But yeah, the other types of bug fix type codes will be coming out soon.
And then I have one last question from chat, and that is, will the topper be sold separately, and can they add it to their SE?
No, toppers are not available. We are not parts sales at Chicago Gaming. We sell games. So the topper is not going to be available through Planetary separately or anything like that. It comes on a game, or it won't be ever available for that game. So SE Plus is down the road. If you're able to buy an SE Plus and didn't get in on the LEs, that's the way to get the topper down the road.
All right, I think that's everything from everybody here.
Well, I have a couple of other quick slides I could show you, some of the really cool stuff at the factory, if you don't mind a couple more minutes.
Well, we're already running a little bit long on this one, and we do need to prep for the next one.
Okay.
But I sure appreciate your time.
I'll bring them next year then. Thank you, sir.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you so much.